Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Wonder of Faith. As always, I'm Anthony Bush, and today we're going to move right along in our exploration of the wondrous orders. So, like last time, we're still in the order of passion, still talking about identity and those aspects that make us who we are, and how that relates to the great scheme of the will of God and what it means to be a faithful person. And today we're going to talk about something that the orders calls the subordinate rite. Now, what does this mean? So, subordinate means that it's secondary in some way, shape, or form. That we're going to be talking about something that's not what we usually think of as primary when we're talking about being a faithful person, or when we're talking about ideas that really are key in understanding our place in the world, our place in the church, and being who we're meant to be. So with that in mind, we are going to talk about the subordinate rite, which just means anything that does not directly relate to the church or to God. So even those things that we think are never connected to perhaps celebrating the Lord God and being faithful, they are. And with that in mind, we're going to see how it connects on a general level. So I'll give you an example. So if I eat a sandwich for lunch, it would be kind of hard intellectually to connect that to an understanding of what it means to be a good person, a child of God, and just connecting it to the greater scheme. But in fact, everything we do connects to the greater scheme. No matter how insignificant it may seem, it connects. So eating a sandwich. Did I make this sandwich well? Am I eating it thinking about how thankful I am that God has given me this gift of having a sandwich? You know, when we say the prayer before meals, we say it because we're thanking God for giving us the ability to even do this simple act, which is eating and nourishing ourselves. Let me think. Another example could be renting a movie. Firstly, I may rent a movie without thinking about it, like, oh wow, I'm so happy I get to rent a movie, which we should. Anything we do, we should feel thankful to God for allowing it, because everything we do, we are able to do because God has given us the gift of life. But if I'm renting a movie, am I renting this movie just for entertainment's sake, which is perfectly fine as long as it's not sinful in any way? But is it going to change me in some way, shape, or form, watching this movie or seeing what ideas it presents? There's always something we can think about, you know. I know it's very easy as humans to just stay on the surface because we have so much we go through in the day-to-day. We're very busy people, whether we're with others, if we have work, school, no matter what it is, there's always something else to be done. So how can we spend time thinking about these things? Well, it is difficult, but anything in the subordinate rite, anything that seems menial or simple, in the end has some depth to it. That's the way God kind of ordered the universe. There's always a simple action, but there's something behind it that's always valuable, even when we can't see it right away. So with this idea in mind of how we perceive those simple things, we're going to get right in and see the opening intro for the doctrine of the subordinate rite. In all responsibility and order comes the aspects of life that do not relate in any real way to the orders. Here, entertainment and recreation are included to remind the soul that life is to be celebrated and not always to be somber or one-dimensional. So, I know when we think of our ideal selves, it's hard to find how can my ideal self have any fun, because you think you'd always be worried about being the best person possible, and we can fall into that trap, you know, that perfectionism that's not achievable, but which kind of breaks us down in some way, shape, or form. But in the end, if we're doing something, if we're having fun, you know, to feel joy is not a sin. Not at all. It's what we do to get that joy. I would go so far as to say joy that is from what is good is more satisfactory, because we're gaining that joy by doing what God made us to do, which is be good people. On the contrary, if we get some joy of seeing someone fail, or if we get some joy out of some disordered action, I won't go into details, but any sexual action that is considered disordered by the church, for instance, it's a joy. It's not everlasting, of course, And there may be some guilt or some confusion that comes with it. There's always a price when it comes to sinful action. And so if we order our lives toward what is good, if we see that we may have some imperfections, which we all do, it makes sense that we try to move ourselves on a straighter path, on the narrow way as is described in the Bible, and that we take what we can to be good people, that we take time to think about, what am I doing today? How am I writing my notes in class? Am I doing them just to get it done, or am I doing them because I want to succeed to be the best person I can be for God? It's all these things that we have to factor in. And eventually, I think it's not just about talking about it or thinking about it or micromanaging it. It becomes instinctual. We know that we want God, that we long for Him. And by doing so, we order our lives almost without having to think about it until finally we have before us a life that is filled with complete good or very close to it. There's always something to improve. That's the way humanity is, because we do have the scourge of sin upon us. But we can always improve and become happier, more complete, and more gracious, more illuminating people, because God is with us and will help us through that and give us what we need. So starting with number 1, the subordinate right refers to everything uncontrolled by the wondrous orders. So it's basically an escape clause for the orders itself that states, if something's not talked about in here, it doesn't mean that it's not subject to the faith. It just means that it requires perhaps some thinking down the way. So for instance, like last week we talked about health and well-being. So if I'm going for a jog and I see a pastry shop and I really want that pastry because, let's say I've been stressed, and instead of running, I want the pastry. I want to go get that donut right now. I could get the donut and it can make me happy for the moment until I feel guilt for not doing what I'm supposed to do. But in the end, this is not something that you'll find in the orders. That's a very specific case. And of course, the book is finite. It cannot go through every single case in life. But if I derive it from the doctrine of health and well-being, I can tell myself, eating this donut is not going to help me right now to be a better person or help me to become happier in the truest sense. So perhaps I need to skip the donut and run and continue what I was going to do, what I wanted to do, to help myself be a better person. So it's from deriving what the orders has, deriving it to talk about these smaller things, these more daily activities, that we come to understand the larger picture. And that's why we have this phrase here. So we're talking about those things that are more specific to your life, and you have the conscience and the judgment to do it yourself. No one is going to be there to tell you what exactly right and wrong is in every circumstance, but it's through our ability to define it for ourselves and tap into the will of objective truth of what is moral, what is good, that we can come to these decisions. Number 2, remember that superficial pleasure is only there to take up time. Okay, so if I'm doing something just for pleasure without any gain to it. So let's say I go and I watch a football game. I'm at LSU, football's a big deal. And I'm just there to maybe have a good time, and I'm there to just act a fool. That's entertaining, that's fun. You're making people laugh. But if you're doing it unanchored to something, and you're just living in the moment, as people say, living in the moment where you're not thinking of consequences or you're not truly seeing it in the big picture, then it can be something that's detrimental. Entertainment just for the sake of entertainment can be a very dangerous concept, because in the end, we'll do anything to be entertained. We'll do anything to entertain others. And then we start denying our own human dignity. And we may not even realize it. It's a gradual thing. Till over time we're completely a caricature of who we really are. And so it's important to always think, if I'm being entertained in some way, is there something else to it? Can I learn something from this entertainment? Can I feel something within myself that's of value through this entertainment? I know comedians, there's a whole array of comedians out there. There's those comedians that like to make fun of the current state of affairs politically or socially, and that's great because it points out things. But if they're using cuss words and just being rude and very uncaring of people, then that's not going to help me in a way that perhaps a nicer or wholesome comedian who is there to make us laugh and make us understand the state of life in a much nicer and brighter way. There's a difference between those two. One, I would argue, is more beneficial than the other, and that's what we have to look at. If we have two choices in front of us that seem similar, is there one that's better? And it may not be as cool or as entertaining in our eyes, but in the long run, if we keep within ourselves an understanding of what is good, what is moral, what is beneficial for us, then we will achieve much. And we know like delayed gratification is a novelty in this day and time, but there are many, many strengths to it. And if only we take time to see them, to think about them, then I think we could be much happier people and see the world differently in a way that more reflects the truth of what the world is, rather than perhaps being clouded by the things it tells us, because we all fall into that trap. Number 3. Never shall it be allowed that the subordinate right take authority over one's dedication to God, family, or education. So growing up, these 3 things, God, family, and education, in that order, were the 3 most valuable things that we lived by as a family. Especially me as a student, and I still am, but like God comes first, then family, and I would include good friends in that, and then education. And if the order gets switched, after education comes everything else. But if the order is switched, if I put my family above God, or even my education above my family, then things start to get out of whack. Because my priorities are no longer lining up to what is actual, what is actually in reality. And next thing you know, I am going down a path that is not as good because I'm neglecting what I shouldn't as a human being. The church tells us time and time again, every one of us on this earth have a longing for God. Whether they realize it or not, we all long for the Lord God. We were built to. It's in our nature. And anything that obstructs that nature will cause us sadness and confusion, and then will make us question who we are and what our value is. So we have to make sure that those things, family and education, as well as the other things, entertainment or self-gratification, those type of things, remain at the bottom. Because if they start to creep into our lives, then next thing you know, our priorities are all out of whack, and we're no longer who we're meant to be, no longer on the path of becoming our best and happiest. Number 4, include others in your free time to better understand them and also yourself. I think this is very important. I know personally, I consider myself an introvert, so I love to be by myself. And I'm always thinking about something, either a concept or something I have to do. And it happens whether I want it to or not. But over time, if I stay in that state by myself, I'll start to almost have a feedback loop where I'm stuck in a conflict, or I'm stuck in a problem in my head and nothing's fixing it. And I just stay in my head and it just gets worse and worse and worse because I'm stressing about this and I can't find a solution. Well, spending time with others, even if it's not always talking about the high things in life or the biggest ideas, just simply spending time with someone else kind of allows you to express yourself and open the doors of your mind to reality. And by doing so, you calm yourself. You once again anchor yourself to what matters in life. And that's why having friends and talking to other people is important. Because by doing so, we're able to righten the sail, so to speak, and have the boat move about in a way that's okay and calm, and that is fruitful, rather than staying in one spot and rocking side to side, being bashed by the waves, as an analogy. So it's always good to have people that you can spend time with. Even if it's just for an hour, I would say maybe once a day or once every 2 days. And I don't mean just like saying hello to someone and saying good morning. That's different. I'm talking about actually spending time and talking to someone. Because there is of utmost value. I think we come to learn about ourselves when we talk to other people. Because we see, how do I react to them? How am I going about being a friend or talking to someone? And it's in those moments that we learn about who we are and also about who the other is, which is just as important. Number 5, do not allow the infatuation with nothingness to exist, for it will yield no grace. So, nothingness, what do we mean? I don't necessarily mean nothingness as in the idea of nothingness, because who wants to think about nothingness unless you're a philosopher, even then. But I do mean those things that have little impact. So a weird example, like let's say a comet is just found out and it's moving through a different solar system from ours. Then at that point, if you're thinking, where is this comet going? What's its trajectory? And I can't figure out this trajectory, and it's causing me to become sad and depressed that I can't figure this out. And in the end, it's a problem and you want to solve it because that's the way we are. We like to solve problems. But in the end, is that comet moving in a different solar system really going to affect your life at all? I would say 99 times out of 100, no, it's not. So just worrying unnecessarily is not good for the person, not good for the soul, not good for the body, not good for anyone or anything. And especially when we need to worry about things that really matter. Like if our friend is depressed, or if our mom needs help from us, these things we should be worrying about get pushed aside because we're stuck on this simple thing. And we have to make sure these small, insignificant things that are close to nothing in value when it comes to our intentions, then that's taking up space that we could use for something more fruitful. So we should always reevaluate, what are we thinking about? What are we talking about? What are we giving our life to? And if it's not something of value or equal to your dignity as a person, then it's time to move along. And it can be hard. Our mind wants to stick to something until we solve it. But if we accept that God is with us and that He sees all and knows all, then that will give us the solace we need to move on. Because He's obviously calling us to something else that needs our attention. And God's always giving us something to do. He knows what we need and what fulfills us. So look for what He wants from us rather than what we want to go after. Number 6, find hobbies that will diversify the person and allow a broader spectrum for the enjoyment of life. So I think as human beings, it's good for us to get out there and do different things. Because if we stay in our little comfort zone, then we're not growing. And you hear that all the time from religious people and non-religious alike. But and within the Christian Catholic context, it's not that we don't want to do what we're good at, that we don't want to do that we've mastered. But it's the fact that if we improve ourselves in other areas of our life, that can in turn help us with that which we're good at. Because we're learning to face conflict or something new. And by developing the strategy of facing new things, we become more adaptable and more able to handle life itself. And we're able to see that when God sends us something, a trial or a mission, that we can handle it better because we've allowed ourselves to become better and more experienced. Experience is very valuable in life in general. That's why the virtue of wisdom, which we're going to talk about, has something to do with that. But here in the context of identity, it's important that we understand that we can put ourselves out there and we may fail. That happens. It's part of life. But we have to take the risk because in the end, we know if we fail, it's not the end of the world. God's still with us. We still have our family. We still have everyone on our side in faith. And so we can get back up and try again. Number 7, fun is an expression of life that shall remain wholesome and presentable to God. There are so many different ways to have fun in the modern day. We can go to a theme park. We can spend time with friends. We can go listen to music. And those are all wonderful things because we enjoy experiencing those things that make us happy and that which is not part of the everyday, and that's awesome. But when we seek things that are not helping us or even detrimental to us just for the sake of fun, then that is when it is a problem. Because in a way it's an addiction, just like to drugs or alcohol. We crave something, we crave this feeling that may not be helping us in our goal to become better people, get closer to God, and make actual who we are. And by becoming slave to this idea of fun, so maybe fun is bullying someone, especially in schools, it makes someone feel good to put others down. And eventually that may become a sort of fun in a way. Or maybe it's fun to go chain smoke with some buddies who do drugs. That's an extreme example, but it's true. It's not only about the substance, it's about being part of a group. So you need to do this thing to be part of a group, and then you'll have fun, you'll feel accepted. And in the end, these things that are quote-unquote fun are disordered, but they're also counterfeit because they're not really fun. They're fun on the surface, but underneath, they're detrimental. They're causing us to suffer. They're causing us to lose those aspects of ourselves that we used to know. And slowly but surely, you'll become someone who you never thought you would. And it's something to fear, it is. But if we stay straight and narrow, if we know what we need to do, then we can have fun in those situations that are good, that help us be better people. And it's a win-win because not only are you growing as a person, allowing your soul to be more unified with Christ and the church, but you're also experiencing joy that comes from God in these activities. Playing team sports, going to trivia, enjoying another's company. These little events that cause joy are improving us as we're also feeling this excitement within us. And there's nothing that can replace that. That's the best sort of fun. Number 8, God and fun do not have to be separate things. Absolutely. In fact, they shouldn't be. Because if we truly believe that our faith permeates the entirety of our life, which is the way that the church sees it, it's the idea, this idea that Christianity is just for Sundays is wrong. That's just a way for the modern society to kind of box in faith because they don't want it to permeate, because then they're held accountable thereof. But if we hold to this belief that we are children of God, no matter if we're at church or not, then we can have fun in a holy way. And when we do that, we're all the better for it. Like there's a theme, if you haven't noticed, that fun in God is beneficial. Fun in God is fulfilling. Unlike fun away from God, against God, that is not. That's broken. Like anything else, when Satan takes something of God, it's like the joy that God provides, he'll twist it. It's joy that is linked to some suffering or some self-damaging. And it's nothing like the joy or fun that God provides. So we always have to think, when we're going through life, are we giving ourselves to that which is of God or of evil? And it's always either or. There are some gray areas sometimes, but usually we can tell if we evaluate ourselves which way we're going. And if we find that perhaps we're moving toward the worldly evil aspect of life, then it's not too late. We all have problems. But the point of life is to turn away from it, to reject it slowly, because we're kind of hooked, We become addicted to the simple, to that which we can get directly. But we turn our face to that which may be harder at first, that which maybe is not acceptable to most of society. We turn our face, our heart toward that, and we go after it. Next thing you know, we are a much better version of ourselves. And that includes fun. So have fun. That's part of life, I don't think humanity could exist without fun, without joy in general. So go for it. Have those times. But remember that we're having them as children of God, as souls meant for good, even if we are in a state of sin. Number 9, discuss your interests with others, for this may be a way a friendship starts. So, forming friendships is a very tricky business, I find, because you never know who's going to understand you, who's going to accept you. And especially as children of God, as faithful Catholics or faithful Christians, it can be hard in this day and time to find people who appreciate that, who see you for who you are, someone trying to reach the epitome of human existence, trying out of faith, out of love, to get there. And they see you as someone who's maybe too idealistic or maybe deluded in some way, shape, or form, that you're going after something unachievable, because they've never been exposed to that. They don't understand the value of reaching for heaven, mentally, spiritually, physically. And so through friendship, I hope we can teach others about what that means, what being Catholic really means. And slowly but surely, I think we can get people to understand. If we try, if we're bold enough, we can get people to understand what truth is, what joy really is. And the next thing you know, bam, they're Catholic. That's the hope, isn't it? I mean, we want the world to be Catholic. We want the world to be Christian. We want the world to be of love. We want the world to be selfless. Because if we're all selfless, if we all see Christ in the other, then why have war? Why have poverty? This is utopianism, which of course I don't subscribe to. But that's what heaven's supposed to be. It's supposed to be union that is perfect, knowing that is perfect, existence that is perfect. And why not bring heaven to earth in the little ways we can, in the subordinate rite, in the things we do, in cleaning the desk, in getting the mail, in taking a test. All these things, small and big, can lead to opening the door of someone else to reaching Christ and coming into sacramental union with us, receiving the body of Christ, the Eucharist. I just get joy thinking about it. This is the joy that is true, the joy that allows the soul to really be put forward and be illuminated. So I ask you, brothers and sisters in Christ, in this day and age, when it's hard, when we may not feel like going out there, we may feel scared that we're going to be rejected, and we just might be rejected. It's always a possibility. But if people truly care about us, if they really want to listen to us and understand us and be there for us, then they will take the time out to understand what is joyful to us, what allows us to be happy. And that's the faith. That's God. That's the example of the saints. That's Mary, our mother. There's so many ways we can get it done, but pray to God. Ask Him, Lord, how can I be more faithful to you? How can I bring your light to others? And I'm sure He has an answer. He always does. And as each of us has individual gifts, we'll do it in different ways. So, well, thank you for joining me today. This has been wonderful. This has been the Subordinate Rite, which once again means that which is not necessarily directly linked to faith or God. Still just as important, though, as I hope I've demonstrated. So I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you for joining me once again. As always, I'll leave the Amazon link to the Wondrous Orders below. May God be with you, and may you find final victory in Christ.